There was just a fuzzy that like flew behind me. ADD. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a little bit different because although I have mentioned small talk in a podcast before, I don't believe I've ever talked about it in a YouTube video. But this is FasciNATIVE English, and I am American, and I'm teaching you American English, native level American English, right? Because of that, you need to understand a little bit about American culture. So before we get into today's video, let me just preface by saying small talk is huge in American culture. It's something that you need to know how to do, which I do have a podcast talking about that. You can go back and watch and learn all about it in my podcast. But I thought this should be a video. This should be a YouTube video where you can learn at least maybe 3 or 4 different ways to initiate small talk and maybe questions or topics that you can speak upon during small talk. There was just a fuzzy that like flew behind me. ADD. So that's what today's video is going to be. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. The goal for today, the bottom line goal, is just to get you comfortable and engaging in small talk, social interactions and conversations. Maybe when you're on the elevator, or maybe when you're at work, or maybe when you pass somebody on the street, because literally that's a thing here in America. I will be waiting at the bus stop for my kids, and my neighbor, who I don't even know, maybe from my neighborhood, maybe from a neighboring neighborhood, is just walking their dog. They just say like, oh, lovely weather we're having. And I'm like, yeah, it's really nice. They're like, yeah, sun's finally out. Yeah, sun's finally out. You know, it's like, what's your dog's name? Oh, my dog's name is Simon. Oh, hey, Simon. Have a good walk. And that's small talk. So the first topic that you can talk about in small talk is the weather. I will say this is like the default topic for Americans. If we don't know what to talk about, it's awkward silence. We hate that. I don't know why, but as an American, I hate it. My fellow Americans, though, we all hate awkward silence. We need small talk, and we kind of resort to talking about the weather, especially when the weather's weird. So this year in particularly, 2025, it is March, and the weather has been weird the whole year. It was cold, so cold, like blizzard, snowing in Florida in January. We had like an extended winter. It even snowed in Atlanta where I live. It literally was hot one day, like a week after snowing, and then, or like maybe 2 or 3 days, and then it went back to being cold. And then it was like, now we're in this limbo where it's like kind of warm in the afternoon, but kind of cold in the morning. And the weather's been weird. And now it's even today, at the time of this recording, there's like tornado warnings going on for today. And there's supposed to be a huge storm. And I'm just like, what is going on? So when the weather is weird, especially when the weather is weird, you best believe we Americans, we're gonna use that as small talk. Weather is like the number one thing we use for small talk. So an explanation. When we talk about the weather, it's usually because it's a safe topic. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows, like, you can literally just be outside and be like, yeah, it's gonna rain later. It's nice weather today. Everybody knows about it. So it's relatable, all right? And usually people will say something along the lines of, instead of just saying, oh, nice weather we're having, which that actually happens all the time, but it's kind of a cliche. But instead of saying that, people can say something, they'll comment about it like, oh, smells like rain, or it's kind of chilly today, isn't it? And then you guys start talking about it, or oh man, it's really hot. I'm breaking a sweat. Like somebody will comment on the weather, and that's what gets you guys talking. And when you small talk, it's literally called small talk for a reason. You're not going to talk for a long time. I would say small talk is like a minute long, maybe even shorter, maybe 2 minutes max. Small talk is just small talk. It's just so it's not awkward silence. Think of an elevator ride. You're going from like the first floor to the 10th floor. In that amount of time, that's small talk. Really short, really sweet. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bam. Done. Small talk. So you can talk about the weather. I think it's America's number one thing to talk about, the weather, for small talk. The second one, which is a little bit more niche, it's common, but like it depends on who you're speaking with, is your hobbies and interests. All right. For example, when I'm at work and I'm with coworkers that I'm not really close to, but I want to get to know them. Example sentence. What do you like to do in your free time? I enjoy shopping. That's true. That's me. The example sentence that I came up with was, I enjoy reading books. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't like reading anymore. I used to when I was young. I decided to go to college and major in English and get a degree in English. And I had to read so many books that now I hate reading. So my hobby is shopping and weightlifting. And sometimes just scrolling on Instagram when my kids are preoccupied and I can just have me time. Those are my hobbies. So usually if I were to ask someone like, hey, what do you do in your free time? I would say like, hey, what do you do in your free time? I like shopping. What about you? Or I like weightlifting. What about you? And I try to find like common interest. And then they can be like, oh, well, I go bicycling. And I'm like, that's cool. I heard about that a lot. I don't know anything about bicycling, but I try to relate. And then fizzles out. You just feel the awkward silence for a little bit and then it's done. Or you guys actually connect and that small talk turns into something greater and grander, like a friendship. I had a friend at my work, literally just acquaintance. I wasn't close to her at all for like 6 years or 5 years. And then suddenly she's like, hey, I'm going to Japan with my brother and I heard that you've been there. So do you want to give me some tips or some advice? And I was like, oh my gosh, I have waited my entire life for this. And now we are best friends. Okay, it was just like that little question that she was like, hey, you know anything about Japan that I can do? And I was like, here's the itinerary. I labeled everything out, color coded everything for you. There you go. Because that's like my favorite thing to talk about is like traveling, and especially the countries that I love to visit, which Japan and Korea are the top. Vietnam is recently added up there too. Even though I've been to European countries as well, like 7 different European countries, I gravitate towards Korea and Japan because they have my heart. I lived there for a long time and they have my heart. So yeah, that was an actual friendship that blossomed from that small talk. All right, so sometimes things can happen. It can lead to longer conversations or friendships can bloom, but also sometimes it fills the awkwardness. Okay, it fills the awkwardness. So if I ask you, hey, what do you like to do in your free time? Or what's your hobby? Or did you used to play sports? Do you play sports? Do you play any instruments? That's just small talk. So we have the weather, we have hobbies and interests, and then we have work or school. This one I would say is something that Americans tend to talk about because our lives revolve around constantly working or going to school, like depending on your age. We have nothing else better to talk about. Typically we would say, hey, how's work? Are you still working for blah, blah, blah? If you know the person. If I kind of know the person, but I don't know them really well, I can say, hey, how's work? Are you still working for blah, blah, blah? Insert company's name here. Are you still working for American Airlines? Are you still working for Samsung? I can try to figure out like, oh, you still work? And then we start the conversation. Oh, no. I quit that job a couple years ago. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. What are you doing for work now? They say it. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I work for blah, blah, blah. Small talk. Very short, very sweet. Or possibly could blossom into something more. Or for school, like, hey, are you still in school? Aren't you getting your master's degree? Or did you decide... So aren't you getting your master's degree or did you decide to get a doctorate? What are you doing for school? Like, oh no, I actually decided I'm going to go to law school. Oh, law school. That's so cool. Yeah. I thought about going to law school as well. True story, because I'm good at arguing. I didn't do it though. Did not do it because once I finished school, I was like, I went to grad school then, but then I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. Side note. Anyways, it's just a small icebreaker. Like it's small talk because it's something that you're like, it's awkward silence right now. Nobody's talking. I need to do something because I feel weird. So let me just ask, hey, are you still in school for, what was it again? Nursing? And they're like, oh no, yeah, I actually am a nurse now. And you're like, oh really? Wow, that's so cool. Small talk. Do you still work for that one company? I forgot the name. Oh, no. I know what you're talking about. I don't work there anymore. I work for blah, blah, blah. Small talk. I'm actually doing this in order of what I feel like as an American, we tend to use, like what topics we tend to use. Weather was number 1. And then we have our hobbies. Then we have work and school. And then number 4, last but not least, recent events or news. So right now, in my little area that I live in, one of the most common restaurants that everybody goes to, not me really. See, this is weird. Another side note, I am white. You guys didn't know? No, I am white. But I live in a multicultural family because my husband is Asian and my kids are mixed. And then plus I lived abroad for a long time. So the average white person in my area loves to go like to like downtown and do like cutesy little things and like walk the strip and like go to these little restaurants and do all these like, I don't know, white people things. This is not me being racist. I'm literally white and I'm explaining what people do who are also white. But for me, I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. I would go to a cool cafe or bakery though. Like that's my kind of vibe. But just walking around and like going to a restaurant or like sometimes like a bar or something, that's not my thing. I would much rather go to like cafe or bakery. Typically people do that, and everybody in my area right now, all the moms at soccer practice and on the moms Facebook group that I'm in, like for the city that I live in, are all talking about how this one restaurant that everybody goes to failed the health inspection. Like literally got like a 63. So everybody's like, oh my gosh, no, that's disgusting. Ugh. And so now literally I like every time I talk to somebody, they're like, hey, did you hear about, and they say the name of the restaurant. I'm not going to say it because this is YouTube and this restaurant is a mom and pop shop. There's only one. And then you guys are going to figure out where I live. And not that I don't trust you, but you know, so they're like, hey, did you hear that I got a 63 on the health inspection? That's how they start the small talk. And I'm like, yeah, I heard that. I saw that. That's crazy. A lot of people go there and they're like, yeah, that's my favorite plot. Have you ever tried there? And I was like, no, I've never been. And then they're usually like, really? Well, you know what? Good for you, because they got a 63 on their health inspection. I'm like, yeah, you know, ain't no parasites in my gut right now, I guess. I don't know. So current news, recent events, talking about current events or shared experiences is something that you can use for small talk just to break the ice when there's like awkward silence. This has been kind of more common these days because of just what's going on in America, like literally with politics and everything too. Every 5 seconds there's something new, some law being signed, some rule being put in place, some money going somewhere, some money not going somewhere, some war trying to break out, some war not trying to break out.
I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
It's just crazy right now. So I will say the past like 6 months, maybe this has been a common topic of small talk, recent events or news. But typically I would say people talk about the weather because it's super relatable. Everybody knows. Then they talk about their hobbies because also relatable. Everybody has like at least one hobby probably. And then work or school because we all have to work. It's life. And then it's the news because a lot of people like me don't really care about the news. I'm not a news girly. I'm just like indifferent. I'm like, I don't watch the news. I find out my news via social media, or I find out by my mom messaging me, just like she did this morning when she said there's tornado warnings in my area and I need to be careful. And I was like, oh really? I didn't know that. Thanks, Mom. Because I don't watch the news. So it just depends. But these are just 4 different ways. And there's like a million more different ways that you can small talk probably. But these are the top 4 that if you can just get these down pat, if you can just understand like, hey, when I'm in America, there's going to be situations where I need to have some small talk. So weather, that's a topic. Hobbies and interests, that's a topic. Work and school, that's a topic. And recent events or news, that's a topic. Let's stick to these 4. Let's not go down anything like religious or political or anything that could lead to controversy. Let's just stay lighthearted on these 4. So I hope you guys have a better understanding of small talk and how to socialize with it and why it's so important when you want to learn how to speak English like a native, especially if you're here with me or other YouTubers who are also American and you're learning American English. It's so important to learn the culture sometimes behind it, and small talk is a big part of American culture. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next video.